In progress.
I know we're recording now, but I've also recorded that paranoia session from last week.
Oh, real.
I will upload that because I think it was fun and we should upload. I
Mm,
kept forgetting about to do it, but it's there. It just needs loading up. So
awesome.
yeah, I'll do that.
I'm already looking forward to watching that back because that was so much fun.
Mm. Yeah, it was good.
It was. I still have weird dreams about the Nirvana cult. It was just genius. Yeah, I think for those that weren't there for it, they need to be able to watch it because it
Yeah,
was just
I'd enjoy
brilliant.
watching that.
Oh,
I'm gonna
right.
should I put my character up? Can I put my character
Mm.
background on?
Yeah, you can do, buddy.
Yeah.
You've got one of those squiggoth, whatever they are, things behind you, haven't you, at the moment?
Yeah, we'll come to some of the natural enemies of Rift's Earth.
Oh, okay.
That's this. So Mike has made his character, and this Mike's character is a true example of how wide and varied the population of Rift's Earth is. So Rifts is there's sort of the ongoing joke was always that Rifts was a anything, everything, and a fully weaponized kitchen sink scenario. So it's a
Right.
post-apocalyptic Earth where literally anything can and does happen. So essentially, what happened was Earth was in a golden age. Scholars and historians don't really know the old Earth date, but some of the most knowledgeable people maybe put it about 2098, 2100. And technology had come on in leaps and bounds. We were a certainly within our solar system, we were establishing colonies. We were looking at becoming an intersolar empire, if not an interstellar empire. We had come up with all sorts of advances in life quality, cybernetics, you name it. You know, world hunger was almost eradicated. There were very few kind of third world nations. It was a complete golden age. The problem is with the golden age that the evolution of humankind across multiple disciplines and ideas didn't keep up with the biological and cybernetic transhuman development. So technology just started to outstrip humans' ability to cope with it as a society. And there was an event or a series of events. Nobody really knows what now. It's lost to history. But throughout the history of Earth, Earth has always been crisscrossed by a network of ley lines. Um, Everybody is sort of aware of this when you look at it historically. So in the golden age of mankind, technology had taken over and people didn't believe in magic and the supernatural anymore. It had been done away with. It was superstition. But our ancient forefathers knew of these things. We had stone circles at ancient nexus points between ley lines where powerful natural energies sort of settled around the world. And there was an event. Some say it was maybe a war or more than one terrible war, possibly an atomic war that cost the lives of billions of people in a very, very short space of time. And the eruption of that energy, the killing of so many lives, the destruction of so many people in such a short period of time caused the energy in the ley lines around the earth to swell massively. So suddenly these invisible lines of energy that nobody really believed in and was only in the record of ancient history books became 3 mile high blue energy walls that blazed throughout the night and day. And where these lines intersected, where one or more ley lines met, reality tore open with the force of the energies and created rifts. And out of those rifts spilled at first millions and then billions of dimensional beings. So creatures from other worlds, other dimensions within the multiverse, other places in time. They open to all sorts of other alternate realities. And this was the start of the Chaos Earth era. We might do a little Chaos Earth campaign one day. Chaos Earth was essentially the apocalyptic
Hmm.
section of Rift's history. So before the post-apocalyptic, it was the actual apocalypse. So millions and then billions of these dimensional beings came spilling through, some of them travelers, some of them stepping through unable to breathe Earth's atmosphere and dropping dead the moment they got there, some of them galactic conquerors looking for new targets for their efforts. some interstellar wars that were raging on were drawn in through the rifts to then take place across the face of the Earth. This in itself caused millions and billions more deaths, which fueled the rifts even harder. And during the Chaos Earth era, the ley lines became more powerful, the rifts tore more frequently, and it just fed on itself, and it became completely and utterly ridiculous. It was this almost sort of seemingly endless cycle of death and destruction. It just fed on itself, pulling open more rifts. There were a few remaining human civilizations. They all fell during what is now known as the Dark Ages, which is marked by most scholars with the re-emergence of Atlantis, which came back from wherever it had disappeared to many, many years ago, not only shifting global maps and global oceanic patterns and various other weather issues, but it brought with it its horrific inhabitants who unleashed their nightmarish horrors on the world. We'll come to the inhabitants of Atlantis in a little bit. So we got monsters and conquerors from all these different realms of sorcery, super science. They almost brought a complete end to anything that resembled Earth's society and culture. And it was only the dedicated efforts and terrible sacrifices of ancient heroes that prevented complete and utter obliteration or enslavement. So the names of the Order of the Cybernetics, the Glitter Boys, and anyone else willing to take up weapons or spells to defend Rift's Earth sort of became legendary. But the period we find ourselves in now is the sort of post-apocalypse. That happened hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Nobody really knows how long the Chaos Earth era lasted or the Dark Ages lasted. But 109 years ago, a new calendar was established, the post-apocalyptic calendar, which was established with the building of Chi-Town, which rose on the outskirts of what used to be Chicago. So the city of Chicago, a giant rift opened right in the middle of it and basically obliterated the entire city with the horrific stuff that poured out of it. But the coalition states, who were the North American sort of guiding light at that time, they were uniting the human efforts to defend themselves. They built Chi-Town on the outskirts of Chicago, and they fought back with high technology. Some of it possibly remembered and still in use from the pre-Rifts era, but a lot of it looted from old vaults, secret tech and research facilities that were sort of found after the apocalypse, where information was regathered from the Golden Age. And for that first century post-apocalypse, it was mainly marked by power struggles between the coalition, who, in a very broad sense, in the original 90s Rifts, the coalition were bad guys. But you could play as a coalition soldier or a member of the coalition. The coalition are strictly anti-alien, anti-magic, human purists. By the time we get to the current era, 109 post-apocalypse, the coalition has really sort of polarized in one direction and is essentially a new Nazi party. They have a very, very strictly controlled population, and a large part of the North American population is under the control of the coalition. And they're very much against literacy. They're very much heavy into propaganda. So they control the information that people know. And they're very, very anti-alien or dimensional beings, as they are known, rather than aliens. So DBs is the common slang for any form of non-human on Earth.
DBs.
And they're very much against magic users, although not necessarily psychics. And magic users and psychics are separate, and some people are both. Magic is seen as something that kind of came from the Rifts and brought a bit of a stain on the human populace and destroyed Earth and its culture. Whereas psionics are now latent in something like 1 in 4 native humans as a byproduct of the swelling of the ley lines. And the coalition do use psionically powered warriors and psionic users as part of their forces. And so this first century was really marked by once the society and the structure had been re-established, there was a huge struggle between the coalition, who obviously oppose all things to do with divergent populations and magic, and those that embrace them, who were epitomized by the Federation of Magic. So there were a number of magically oriented realms, but the Federation of Magic was sort of the big one. And there was a big ongoing tension between the Coalition and the Federation of Magic. And it culminated about 4 or 5 years ago in the timeline we sit in, where Emperor Karl Prosek, the Coalition's emperor, began a campaign of unity to bring many communities under the Coalition flag to wheedle out all the dimensional beings and all the magic users. And they had a crusade for humanity, which led to a massive military operation attacking magic wielders. Oh, thank you, love.
2 minutes, guys. I'll be right back.
No worries, buddy.
I was about to ask if Gaz knows all this story.
Yeah, we did cover it last time, but I was a bit too enthusiastic last time because I hadn't revisited it in 1,000 years. The culmination of the campaign of unity, the Crusade of Unity, was the defining moment, was the Siege of Tolkien. So the Federation of Magic's headquarters was the city of Tolkien,
North America,
which was a big, huge city of magic users. And it was sieged by the Coalition for 5 years and eventually fell, resulting in the loss of over 1 million lives. And it fell not only for the power of the Coalition from without, but also the corruption of Tolkien from within. In their desperation, they unleashed all sorts of hellish nightmares from magical realms in the name of victory, and they sort of corrupted themselves. And one of the big losses of that war was the fracturing of the Order of Cyberknights. We'll come to the characters and the Cyberknights in a minute. But there was a schism almost 50-50 down the middle between the Cyberknights, who decided that they should stay out of the war because they were meant to be protectors of humanity and not take sides in any power struggle or conflict, and the Order of the Cyberknights who wanted to support Tolkien and defend them in the attack. And it kind of fractured the order. But we're now in 109 post-apocalypse. The ashes of Tolkien are still smouldering, and the Coalition is struggling to rebuild its forces and expand its influence. But the Federation of Magic's leaders are now plotting and scheming for their own run at domination. There's an untold number of other factions doing exactly the same, both on the North American continent and around the globe. And in addition to that, we've still got millions and millions of people who are struggling just to survive and build something out of the destruction and the anarchy. So as a post-apocalyptic Earth, we will be playing initially in North America. We'll come to the map in a minute and where you guys are going to be, but everyone will be sort of a native American speaker. They don't speak English, they speak American, although there is an expansion coming out for Europe this year, which has 3 key things I'm very excited about. And we can travel the world. But the apocalypse happened, but the apocalypse is now over, and we're now living in this new redefined post-apocalyptic setting where we're rebuilding. And in lots of places, trade, this I dread to even say this with Andy Online, but trade and commerce flow easily. They're driven by an expertly established economy of credits, which is represented, it's sort of managed. He's there, damn it. But the Coalition set up a series of credits, which is recognized pretty much globally. It's quite difficult to manage because there are no satellite communications anymore. Satellites were all destroyed in orbit in the coming of the rifts. All of our hopes of a space program and escaping our own atmosphere have sort of gone for a burden. But the credits are individually checked or independently checked by various coalition states and some of the German cities, the Triacs and the new German Republic. They kind of send messages back and forth, and they manage to roughly keep the credits flowing. There's also a complete different black market, which has its own set of sort of checks and balances. So trade flows and happens quite well. Now, most of humanity, or I suppose sentient kind, because humans are no longer the dominant species on the planet, it's a real melting pot. Most of it concentrates in the urban sprawls, but the overwhelming majority of Rift's Earth's surface is now in the grip of wild, untamed wilderness. So huge swaths of land are given over to forests, plains, jungles, deserts, and any other terrain as appropriate to the climate or geography. But the small hiccup to that is, of course, that thanks to the rifts, often that terrain will be intermingled with completely alien patches of flora and fauna that have just fallen out of a rift and been plopped down in the middle of nowhere. So you could be walking down a desert canyon and turn into some kind of lush, verdant alien paradise that somehow managed to survive there and thrive. So people tend to gather, obviously, where food and water are plentiful. And actually, there's all sorts of farming communities, villages, small towns, and even fortresses, from ancient stone and mud affairs to massive high-tech citadels or great magical encampments that dot the landscape. Some of them find their way onto maps. Most of them remain unknown until someone stumbles on them, and they like it that way. They kind of stay out of sight. So you might travel 20 miles in one direction and come across a complete community that nobody even knew was there. Now, in the States and Canada, let's throw up the map, shall we? So this is our North American map, and you might notice a few interesting things on there. So, generally speaking, in the North American continent, wilderness is particularly stark and dangerous, especially the further away you get from the middle of the continent. So in the southeast, dinosaurs rampage through what is now mostly swampland, which is aptly named the Dinosaur Swamp. So Florida is essentially now a dinosaur swamp. In the far northern frontiers of Canada, they tend to be ravaged by monsters that don't mind the cold, as well as some very interesting creatures from rifts. The west is a mix of deserts and plains, a place where ancient spirits, lost tribes of Native Americans, and would-be warlords compete over resources and territory. Now, south of the border, as you get into Mexico, there are the vampire kingdoms. And things just get worse as you go into Central and South America. You get overgrown jungles full of genuinely alien monstrosities and ancient civilizations that have come back to prominence. So, ancient Aztec culture and so on that's now taking over. The world is a fantastic and interesting place. So most people don't have a reliable way to travel great distances. So most of the journeys between major population centers are left to mechanized trading caravans. I can see Andy's eyes lighting up already. Techno wizards and their ley line vehicles that can move along the ley lines, and those few bands of adventurers with big all-terrain vehicles and the guts to brave the unknown land. Those kind of expeditions in Rift's Earth, they're a bit like, only Andy will get this reference, they're like flying through 000 space. Potentially massively dangerous, terrifying and scary the whole time, but in reality, mostly really boring and empty with nothing going on. But at a moment's notice, terror and disaster can strike from any direction and any source. So the key idea really with Rifts is we can literally do anything, go anywhere. We've got a continent. We've got some interesting power plays. We've got some fantastic people, setups, monsters. But at any point, we could potentially journey through a rift into a different dimension. There could be a rift here that opens up into the Forgotten Realms, and we could go to Waterdeep with our power armor suits and our magical powers and create absolute havoc. And the rule set lends itself to that. Oh, excuse me, I've got a real bug today. We're not going to be rift hopping anytime soon. We're going to be starting with a much more human-centric story. So essentially, we're going to be doing outlandish pulp stories of graphic violence and cosmic horror, but also about human survival against the odds and the kind of prejudices of the new world. But I'm going to try and keep it quite grounded in the human stroke alien experience. So your characters will often wield immense amounts of power. And I'm going to run through now some of what they call the iconic frameworks, the sort of character classes, if you will, of classic Rift's Earth. And they all have insane levels of power. Like, you can be ridiculous things from level 1 and be almost unstoppable and unkillable and be able to destroy cities. You could utterly level a small community or even control a territory right on day 1. But it is a story of human survival in a world where literally anything can happen. And that amount of power might not serve any purpose. What use is firepower that can level a city block when a rift opens up in your backyard and deposits the kingdom of an ancient and unknowable cosmic entity that wants to feast on your very soul? So we've got kind of Cthulhian monsters and beasts. So what I thought we would do, and some of these are already viewable in your journal entries from the last little run through we had. I'm going to do a rundown of some of the classic iconic frameworks, which are sort of character classes that we can be in Rift's Earth, just to give you an idea. And I thought if by the end of the night, we've got an idea of a vague character concept. So I would like to be this kind of character, but maybe with this sort of bent. And we'll run through a couple of the potential races. Not all races can play all classes. And some of the races sort of lean better towards others, but we'll run through them, see what they're like. And as we go, if anyone's got any questions, please ask, because otherwise I will run away and get overexcited because it's Rifts.
Can I ask about the cities and stuff like that? So,
Yeah.
like if we take the map in front of us, are they all like rebuilt cities? Are they futuristic? Are they kind of broken down? Are they?
It entirely depends. So Chi-Town, for example, which is the main city of the coalition, the city itself is essentially a technological marvel. It's an unbelievable high-tech fortress city, which is run by the coalition, and I'll show you a couple of images of the coalition. In fact, let's just throw those up while we're here. These are your kind of standard coalition troops. Not that you would imagine these are the bad guys, but they do have a lot of skull motifs. There are some vaguely Nazi similarities.
We the bad guys.
They've got a lot of high-tech power armor. Most of these are not power armor suits. These are just their normal armor suits. And they serve a range of purposes. But this is what the standard beat cop is wearing in a coalition city. And the city itself is extremely high-tech, multi-tiered, and the higher the level you live on, the better the quality of life. But outside of Chi-Town is what's called the Burbs, this massive, sprawling tent city of refugees and asylum seekers desperately trying to get into the city proper and get protection from what is now very scary native wildlife of North America. And that includes populations of DBs and magic users who are, even though they know they'll be persecuted, possibly killed, are still desperate to get into the coalition city. If you go north, for example, so if we were to look at Laszlo up here, Laszlo is a huge magic base. So it's much more of a traditional kind of fantasy city. Again, very high quality of life, great big sort of elven structure, very, very sort of beautiful place. And Tolkien was the same until it was absolutely leveled. So it really depends. But most of the big cities, the ones that are actually on this map, will be quite high tech. You know, you will have people there that you can buy tanks and weapons and power armor and giant robot vehicles from, and high-tech weaponry. The technology level and the quality of life in those places, even, you know, art and literature thrives in many of these cities. They're now very much beyond rebuilding and into very well established. But the vast majority of towns and cities don't appear on this map. And they will completely vary from like a Wild West sort of frontier town up to quite technological but well battered to absolute abject poverty, sort of Middle Ages kind of thing. It really varies.
And where are the ley lines now? Are they still
Everywhere?
And
so
pumped as they were before, or
it depends very much on the ley lines. So some of the very powerful ley lines, like the ones around Chi-Town, where the rift is in the old ruins of Chicago. So the Chicago rift is up here. Chi-Town is obviously several miles away. The very powerful ley lines, the ones that probably crisscross things like Stonehenge and the Giza Pyramid, are visible even during the day. They're probably, you know, 1,000 meters high and bright blue in the day, and you can see them from 20 kilometers away at night. A lot of the smaller ley lines you will see at nighttime as a sort of dull pale blue glow, might be a couple of 100 meters high, but you wouldn't see them against the daylight in the background. Depends very much how much magical power is there. So within the Federation of Magic Lands over here, there's a lot of magic users, but also a really strong network of ley lines. So you're much more likely to find the big ones.
What's that thing? It looks like a big lake, but is it like inland from the Federation of Magic running down through CS Eldorado and Missouri. What is that? Is that like
I think that's a network of ley lines.
that big? Looks like a big
I think
channel.
the blue that whole blue area I believe is the magic zone. So that is
Okay.
absolutely heavily populated with ley lines, rifts, and so if you're a magic user in this game, for example, casting your spells while on a ley line, you can draw on its power. And if you're on a nexus between multiple ley lines, you can draw on a lot of power to make really powerful spells. So that's why the Federation of Magic is clustered around here, because this is the magic zone, this blue area here.
And where are I mean, like, is there like a map of ley lines so that we know when we're near them or crossing them? Or...
No. So the average person wouldn't know. There's a particular class or particular iconic framework that we'll come to who is sort of ley line attuned and can sense them and find them. But generally speaking, they're so widespread that it's you'll come across them in your travels. But this is about as detailed a map of North America as exists. And I would say 99.99% of the civilizations in North America are not on this map because literacy and the pursuit of that kind of stuff is not only quite rare, but also actively quashed by the likes of the coalition. They try and stop information getting out and people knowing things because they like to control all of that information and that power. So nobody's out there sort of mapping them. You might know your like 2 or 3 of your local ley lines for an area that you live in because you'll have kind of worked them out, come across them, but there is no known network of ley lines. And potentially they can also shift. There's not a lot of documented evidence one way or the other as to whether they are permanent. What we do know is that compared to the Dark Ages, when the ley lines would flare wide and rifts would tear open every 2 or 3 nights, there are some places now where there are ley line nexuses where nobody in living memory can remember a rift opening. The magical energies are definitely dying down compared to the Chaos Earth era. Doesn't mean that you're not going to stumble across a rift that rips open and deposits 1,000 angry something or other troops from an alien race, but it's less common than it was.
That's nice to know. And the unknown shitting lands.
Ah,
Where's that?
the
West Coast.
oh yeah, the unknown shifting lands.
Oh, shifting lands.
Yeah, they are unknown, but you can go there if you want to dump.
Rob.
The one I've always wanted to run a campaign in because it was the first source book that Palladium ever released, and I bought it pretty much as it released. Is down in Mexico in the Vampire Kingdoms because vampires are fun and funky. Vampires in Rifts are very Cthulhian, but we'll come to that. The other one is coming back to Tyranids, Gaz. The Zittersix Hivelands, which tend to be up in the north.
Not going there.
They are
Not going
an
there.
alien insect race who most people and again, this is not information that your characters will know because information is very sparse and carefully controlled. But as players, the Zittersix are an insectoid alien race who want to enslave all the sentient races on Earth or take all their resources. And there's a common consensus that if a united front is not put forwards very soon to try and control their population, they will just take over the Earth because they spread like wildfire. But the problem is a united front is quite difficult when the coalition actively opposes pretty much everybody else on the continent.
Rob, what's the Shemarian nation?
Very good question. I've no idea. That I can find out, but it's never one I ran before.
Right.
In fact,
okay.
that may or may not be new. There is on the East Coast there's some new stuff that wasn't something I was aware of in the original book, which may be an evolution of the lore, or it might have been from some of the source books after I stopped playing. But it's got some really cool ideas. So Archie 3 down here, we will be using at some point in the campaign. But we'll not go into that in any more detail just yet.
Cool.
So your iconic frameworks. These were like the classic Rifts character classes that came in the core book. And the first one is the Burster. And the Burster is an extremely powerful psychic. And with that comes all of the things that an extremely powerful psychic has. You get a lot of power, you get lots of different psychic powers, but Bursters tend to be people who struggle to control the extremes of their emotions. So the way they manifest their psychic powers is not just like any other psychic, it's through pyrokinetics. So they are true manipulators of fire. All their huge powers revolve around the use of fire, and they can do enormous amounts of damage. It's always said that their primary role is typically a combat role. They're very, very aggressive. A lot of psychics have wide-ranging powers and can do all sorts of manipulation and stealth and subterfuge. Bursters are a blunt tool. And typically, if a group has a burster in it, then whenever you enter a new town, there's usually a conversation to be had about property damage, because the moment they get wound up, the moment they fly off the handle, things tend to burst into fire in a 2-mile radius. They're extraordinarily powerful. And I'm going to run through these just at a very high level to get ideas for the types of things you might think would be cool. And then once we've seen them all, there's like 11 of them or something. You can ask me about any of them. We'll go into some of the specific rules. So once you hear just 2 or 3 of the highlights of the rules for each one, they're all completely overpowered. Your other option, if you want to be competitive in Rift's Earth, is just to entirely replace your organic structure. Full Borg conversion combat cyborgs. Basically, you might have maybe a tongue, a tiny bit of your respiratory system, and a brain left. Everything else is completely cybernetic. You can carry artillery pieces like handguns, and short of a tank, no weapon out there can damage you. So there was a concept in the original Rifts game called mega damage. And it used to be that if you had a mega damage gun, you could melt anybody in normal armor. As soon as you hit them, they just die. And if they had normal weapons, they couldn't hurt mega damage weapons and vehicles, which meant that somebody with a pistol and 1 billion rounds could never penetrate the hull of a tank. And it still holds true in this. Now, mega damage weapons no longer entirely eviscerate someone on hit. You can still survive one, but it's pretty gritty. You get very serious, nasty injuries out of them. But a cyborg is made of mega damage alloyed armor. So your 9mm pistol, your machine gun, your shotgun, it literally can't scratch them. It might take the paintwork off, that's all. So the combat cyborg, quite often an ex-mercenary or a current mercenary or a former combat specialist, because of the strength of that cybernetic system, they're superhuman. They can take ridiculous amounts of damage. They have superhuman strength, superhuman speed. They can lift and carry things at ridiculous amounts. They're insanely fun to play. Speaking of insanely fun, the next option is the crazy. So we've got 2 options for modified humans who take their natural biological systems and push them above and beyond. And the 2 main ways that people do this are either to become a crazy or a juicer. Now, a juicer, as you would imagine, is somebody who pumps so many drugs into their system, it basically makes them into sort of Steve Rogers, like a combat specialist. The crazy does it in a slightly different way. They have the MOM implant, the mind over matter implant. It was originally developed in South America as a therapeutic tool in the golden era of mankind. So for people who are suffering with mental disorders, they found that they could, with nanotechnology, with a brain implant, they could manipulate people's brain chemistry to help them deal with various mental disorders and psychological brain imbalances. But as soon as somebody got wind of any potential military applications, they found if they turned these things up to 11, they could actually change people's adrenaline responses and muscle responses, and you came up with these super warriors. The problem is that it has a negative effect on mental health. So crazies get exceptional power and capability, both in terms of their physical ability. So I suppose they're a little bit like a D&D barbarian. They are physically much better than an average human because their adrenaline response is always on a high level. Their muscles are always primed to go, but they can also choose to essentially give in to the craziness and go berserk, and it makes them even more powerful and even more dangerous. But on top of that, because they've had their minds messed with and manipulated, most crazies have got pretty powerful psychic powers as well. So they've got some pretty powerful psionics. The downside is they tend to be pretty mentally unstable. So the upside of craziness is you're pretty tough. The downside is it might make you quite dangerous to not only to be you, but to be around you, even for your friends and allies. The other side of that, we'll go with this next. The other side of that coin is the juicer, who similarly has enhanced strength, enhanced speed, enhanced reactions, and typically very, very good military training. Most juicers are mercenaries, military specialists. They are experts in what they do, but they get their abilities through an implant rig and an internal biocomp that basically completely modifies their hormonal system. The downside from a juicer's point of view, they keep their sanity, unlike the crazies, but their lifespan drops to next to nothing. The mechanics for this are brilliant in game. You have a burn meter. You can do some really cool things. You can do some even cooler things, but it costs you a burn point. If you ever hit 0 burn points, your character dies that session. No ifs, no buts, no exceptions. Your body has burnt out. You can choose when they go. You can pick your heroic ending and stuff, but at certain points you could lose burn for a number of reasons outside your control. And every juicer knows that once you've had the implant done, you've got maybe 4 or 5 years, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, depends on your body, but at some point you're going to burn out, and they definitely go for burnout rather than fade away. But they get speed, strength, and endurance 10 times that of a top athlete. There are very, very rare cases of juicer detox. So you can try, once you've had your career as a juicer, to take out the biocomp, remove the drugs, and kick it. But there's an enormous chance of just dying on the operating table because your body becomes very quickly dependent on the very, very high chemical levels.
Well, one of those too late to change your mind, really.
Bit far in.
Of the heroic people that kept Rift's Earth safe in their early days, the Cyberknights and the Glitter Boys are the two most well-known. And the Cyberknights were an order of essentially people who could wield a certain amount of power. And they were called the Cyberknights not because they use an awful lot of cybernetics. And in fact, actually, they tend not to use cybernetics. It's a bit of a misnomer. But they've got pretty powerful psychic powers, and they can summon a Psy Blade and Psy Armor. So they often have their own psychically created blade and armor. And the Order of Cyberknights is sort of a noble warrior tradition steeped in honor, justice, and mercy. Could come from any noble warrior tradition. So you get Cyberknights that style themselves in a samurai style. But the most traditional one is founded on sort of Western European knights. So you get a lot of references to kind of King Arthur and his court and the Knights of the Round Table. But they do represent any culture on Earth, and a few more from places that are not Earth, because Cyberknights are not all necessarily human. In the wake of the fall of Tolkien, of course, the Order of Cyberknights split pretty much in half. So there are a lot of Cyberknights that have fallen from the path of righteousness and justice and defending the young and the innocent. So the Cyberknights, I suppose, are the paladins of the universe. The crazies, the barbarians, the juicers are just mad junkies. And then we've got Glitter Boys. And this is this is one of the most iconic. I had the
I've got Mickey written on it, that character, I think.
I had the special edition of the first edition of the Rifts rulebook, and it was in a hardback leather, and on the cover was just the faceplate of a glitter boy in etched embossed silver. It was at the time very expensive for 16-year-old me, but I absolutely loved it, and I've still got it somewhere. So the Glitterboy armor suits are one of the reasons that humanity even still exists. They were used, and their technology predates historical record. So a lot of Glitterboys still exist. They tend to be handed down from families. So your mentor or your parent or whoever would have been a Glitterboy pilot, and they then bequeath the suit to you, and therefore you became a Glitterboy pilot. So as a character class, this one I really like. It's very interesting because inside the suit, you're one of the most iconic and powerful people in the game. The Glitterboy armor is so called because it's made of a chromium alloy that reflects light. So if you stand them on a hill, a row of them, they absolutely like a disco ball in the sunshine. And the idea about that was that they reflect laser beams. So they take significantly reduced damage from lasers. And they have a huge amount of armor anyway. They're very, very difficult to destroy. But the sort of most well-known thing about the Glitterboys is they carry that weapon, known as the boom gun. It creates
Boom, boom,
sonic
boom,
boom
boom.
every time it is fired. It's the biggest single gun in the Rift's universe. And it's very true that Glitterboy pilots, to hone in their targeting sensors, quite often there's a particular crater on the moon that Glitterboy pilots try and get the closest hit to. It's a bit of a competition between them, and they will fire their boom gun at the moon. It's a ridiculous amount of damage. I mean, you could find a greater demon or a dragon or something, and you could just pop it with your boom gun and pretty much try and take it down in one shot. It's a mighty weapon. However, there's a few drawbacks to it. One is, in order to fire it, the Glitterboy suit itself has to fire 3 diamond-tipped, laser-drilled studs from its feet, about 6 feet into the ground from each foot, before it can fire, or else it just blows the suit over backwards and tends to knock the pilot out. In addition, when you fire it, everyone within about 100 feet will be deafened. It will blow out windows, it will knock over cars, it will do an insane amount of damage. Plus,
cool.
I think they're like 700 or 800 credits per shot to fire the gun. So it's not cheap. But
Don't make me fire this. Don't make me fire it.
You won't like me if I fire it.
What I love about this, though, as a character class, is on the surface of it in combat. If you're in the Glitterboy suit, and you can be in the suit, it has life support. That means you can stay in the suit for up to about 72 hours. Not comfortable, but you can do it. No worries, buddy. Gotcha.
No bother, bud.
But the challenge with the Glitterboy suit is that outside the suit, you're a pilot. You tend to be very well thought of. Glitterboy pilots get a positive bonus to any interactions with people. They're well seen. Even the ones who actually aren't that ethical. The history of the Glitterboy is so strong in Rift's Earth that if people know you're a Glitterboy pilot, you'll get better prices in places. They will assume you're noble and heroic. But outside the suit, you're just a dude. So most of the role playing is done without the suit. You're not going to walk into a bar in it. It's too big, and it would probably not be allowed inside the center of most population centers. But my God, if you get into a scrap and something comes out of a rift, you're probably the best thing to deal with it. You're also most likely going to be the first target for most enemies because you're scary. When we switch to the magic side of things, we've got a couple of magic users. So the first is the Leyline Walker. Now, Leyline Walkers are extremely powerful magic wielders, but they focus very much on the magic of ley lines. So they can travel along ley lines, they can send messages across them, they can touch a ley line and know what's happening 10 miles down the road on that same ley line. They're very, very highly attuned to them. And some of them have these cool ley line surfboards that they can get on and kind of surf down the ley line. It's pretty sweet. So they're a more rounded magic user than some of the very focused ones. But they have a very strong affinity for ley lines, ley line travel, ley line communication, and drawing power from these ley lines. The other side of that, if you wanted to just go pure devastating magical power, is to play a mystic. So the mystics are almost a sort of a druid not quite, but they have a combination of both magical awareness and psionic powers. So they are spell weavers who are, I suppose they're a bit more like clerics because their magic is drawn from an understanding of cosmic force. It isn't necessarily a deity, it might be a principle of physics, but they draw much more power than most other magic and psionic users, and they focus it in a very, very kind of specific way. And then the other side to the psychics. So you had the Burster at the beginning, who is the psychic, which is just pure destruction. You've also got the Mind Melter, who is the psychic, which is just pure power. They are the highest. These are essentially P10s and above. These are the most powerful psychics on Rift's Earth. They're well aware. And they tend to be objects of fear. You know, if people know that's what you are, they tend to be pretty wary of you because they are well aware that they have the power to melt somebody's brain inside their head at any possible moment or pull their thoughts asunder and reorder their thought processes as they sort of see fit. So it's a huge amount of power, and most are kind of benevolent and defend the weak and all the rest of it, but some just use it for personal power and aggrandizement. So it's entirely up to how your character plays. But they can't deny that kind of sheer power. There's a couple of others. The first of which is the Techno Wizard, which I've sort of accidentally made look cooler than the others because it's the only one that there isn't decent art for in the book. I didn't like the art in the book, so this art's way cooler. Techno Wizards combine magic and technology, as you would expect. So they're combining kind of crystals, wire, and magical power to create items that do cool things by magic using tech. So, for example, they might make a gun that could freeze somebody or set them on fire, but it doesn't consume bullets. It consumes magical power pumped into it by the user. And a Techno Wizard can make items they can give to other people. They're probably the class in the game that will give us or give me the most headache, because you can come to me and go, I want to make a sword that casts the fire spell with a lightning attunement on it to turn it into some kind of zap rod. This is how I see it working. And then we've got to sit down with the rules and go, right, well, it probably uses this power, this modifier. We could give it this sort of, but you could essentially make anything and they'd be really good for you. But any other psychic or magic users in the group, particularly magic users, you could make items and give them to them as well. You could convert your 4x4 or whatever it is so that it runs on magical energy rather than a thermonuclear reactor, so that you don't have to worry about fuel in the desert. You can fuel it from your own personal power pool. So Techno Wizards are pretty sweet. And then the very last one we've got, have we still got Mick?
Yeah, still here.
Yeah, that's fine, but I just wanted to make sure.
He's just getting naked, doesn't want to be on the camera.
Yeah.
All oiled and lubed.
Oh, Techno Wizards.
When you got to loop yourself down.
Get that silicon rod.
So the last one is the widest,
I don't
and
know
that
where
is
my
the
mind
Mars
goes.
characters. So the Mars stands for mercenaries, adventurers, rogues, and scholars. So
Okay.
these are your ordinary humans in Rift's Earth. And actually, this is the vast majority of player characters. The iconic frameworks are like the super well-known, super powerful. But the Mars characters are also extremely powerful. They're more versatile. They are humans who have somehow, either through skills, guts, gear, they have survived Rift's Earth, despite not being
Good packages
a
here.
mega powerful psychic. And the joy of this is this lets you make your own custom character package. So the ones that are listed on here are, obviously the page I've listed has got the text as well, but the ones I've listed here are the ones that were in the core Rifts rulebook. Used to be what they called occupational character classes.
OCCs, that's it, isn't it?
OCCs and RCCs. You had racial character classes and occupational character classes. You could either be a certain alien or you could be a certain job. Now we can mix and match. We'll come to that in a minute. But you know, you could be a cyber doc or a body fixer. You could be a city rat, headhunter. The thing of this is You could be a psychic or a magic user using a Mars framework. It's not that you can only be a magic user by
Yeah.
being a mystic or a ley line walker. They are one example, and they can do very specific things. But you could be a body fixing cyberdoc who has psychic powers. You can take psychic powers as an edge during character creation. There's a couple in here that I quite like. First off, power armor ace. So if you
I was
want to
looking at that.
pilot a power armor suit that isn't the glitter boy is like the sort of iconic poster boy one, but as a glitter boy pilot, you get a glitter boy. Good luck, have fun. As a power armor ace, you get another suit of power armor.
Going to Lou, guys.
Yeah, no worries, buddy. But you get a much more rounded character. You get to go through the whole character creation process and make yourself pretty cool. The rogue scholars I really like. They, you know, the coalition really opposes truth, knowledge, and the uncovering of mysteries, and so the rogue scholars are sort of dancing on the edge of things. But you could be a robot vehicle ace. Now, robot vehicles are basically anything above power armor. So the glitter boy, or in fact, if we were to look at the absolutely classic coalition Samas pilot, which is the absolute. I mean, this is what is on my background in Zoom. This is the classic power armor of Rift's Earth. The Samas pilot is the strategic armor military assault suit, and they basically fly around the battlefield at ridiculous speeds, carrying railguns and blowing people up. And if you've got a swarm of these guys coming down on you, you know the coalition is not happy with you. But you could have one of these. You might be an ex-coalition pilot who has defected. You might be somebody who stole one or bought one on the black market. If you're a robot pilot, you probably pilot something that's 5 to 6 times taller than that, maybe needs 1 or 2 pilots just to get it to move, but has artillery that can level whole cities in a go. But also, if you do the Mars route, you can completely define a custom package. Every single skill point, attribute, edge, whatever, you can make whatever you want. So from a character concept point of view, that's why I think it's more important, rather than saying, well, I'm going to be a cleric or a barbarian or a whatever. It's kind of, I want to be this. I think that would be quite cool. And it could be something as simple as, well, I want to be a combat cyborg. That would be ace. Or I kind of want to be like an investigative journalist who's quite good at psychic powers or whatever. And then we can start to craft one of those. You know, any of those options are open.
Gotcha.
Very briefly, I will scan down a couple of the DB races, because you could play a non-human. Vast majority of people are humans. Humans get a very strong advantage at the beginning of the game, which is you get 1 extra edge, which is essentially like a trait in D&D. It's like a really powerful starting ability that changes your character. So examples of edges include things like having psychic powers, having magic ability, being able to dual wield pistols with no penalty, those kind of cool character modifiers. Humans get 1 for free. Most people at character creation will only get 1, maybe 0, depending on how you choose to spend your advancements points. So being human is pretty good. But we do have, this is Mike's old background, essentially, in 2D. Not the big slavering monster, but the blind warrior woman next to him. The Altara warrior women are blind slave women, completely and utterly subject clones to the Splugorth Raiders, who are the now denizens of Atlantis. Splugorth, baby. The ultimate 90s name. But a few warrior women do break away, and they are extremely well trained, and they're also all clones, and they are cloned to basically mature rapidly into adulthood with very strong muscles, very good reaction speeds, and so on.
They're like advanced Furiosas.
Yeah, exactly. Nice. They are universally feared and mistrusted throughout most human environments because they're seen as, it's assumed that they are still psychically bonded to a slaver somewhere, and that if they're turning up, it's because someone's about to do a slave raid and come and imprison everybody.
It's not good news.
But they've got some pretty cool abilities. We've got the Denor, often known as devil men, a little bit like tieflings in D&D. They've got quite a demonic appearance, pronounced horns,
Mikey.
Quite inhuman. However, most of them are very intelligent, compassionate, and they tend to be drawn to non-violent pursuits and social pursuits. Most of them seek a pacifist's path.
Pussies.
Pacifist path. I'm a pugilist. So the Denor are deceptively quite a peaceful race, but they look quite scary.
Just misunderstood.
Now,
Can I just
this to me was the ultimate. Back in the day when I was a kid, this was the one I always wanted to play if I was ever.
Oh, Dog Boys.
And that's the Dog Boy. So this is your if we were playing Traveller, we all know what we would be playing here.
Yeah, yeah.
It's exactly the same thing. They're essentially uplifted dogs. So
Boobs.
you could be. There's a whole system in the Dog Boy character creation about the type of dog you are. It's sort of randomized a little bit, not in terms of specific breed, but in terms of the types of breed that you were originally made to be. So you might be more of a tracking hound, or you might be a sort of combat hound, or whatever.
Yeah.
The Dog Boys were created by the Coalition from some tech that was found in an ancient research facility that gave the ability for genetic manipulation. And they were created to be entirely subservient and loyal, and 90% of them are. So 90% of Dog Boys on Rift's Earth serve the Coalition, serve them quite willingly, even the ones on the right with the big boobs. And only two.
Oh, I didn't even notice that until you said it.
Yeah, thanks for that, Bob.
Yeah, I was going to say, bear in mind, I bought this book when I was 16, and I was like, why would a dog have two boobs?
That's wrong. Wrong on so many levels.
I don't know. I don't know if the picture would be any better though if she had like boobs all the way down. I don't know.
No.
I'm not suggesting it would be an improvement. I think for a 90s
Erupting
RPG,
thought
which is all
memes.
guts and guns, that they did quite well to have some gender equality. But the Dog Boys are very much seen as a subservient race in the Coalition, so they're not particularly well treated. They tend to just take it. That's their role in life. But a few do break away. Those that break away and leave the Coalition, and we will be playing characters that are not members of the Coalition, they're actively hunted by the Coalition. They're seen as rogues, renegades. They've been given training, potentially given equipment, and they've escaped and they're not doing what they're supposed to. So they're actively hunted down. But you could be a cool Dog Boy. Dog Boys are bad.
Who's the dude?
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Sorry, what was that, buddy?
Who's the dude in the middle? Is he? Can you hear me properly?
The guy in the middle is a Coalition, so basically psychop. He's like I can't remember what they call them, but he's a psychic Coalition soldier, and they quite often will control a pack of Dog Boys mentally. So they'll be like the handler for the Dog Boys. Yeah.
I like the guy on the left with the Mastiff type.
Yeah,
with the scope assault rifle. That's quite cool.
Yeah, and the sort of spiked helmet.
Yeah,
that gun I had the rules for somewhere. I can't remember which particular Coalition weapon that is, but it was a favorite of mine. It's an art style I like.
Great.
This one, some of the bits of artwork have not aged well from the book. These are the Fenodi. So the Fenodi, or the Quiet Walkers, are, think about like martial artists and meditators. They're a DB. They tend again to live peaceful lives, herd livestock on the prairie, and like other outdoor pursuits. The little dots on the side of their heads are often confused with eyes, they're often thought of as ears, but they're actually their eyes right on the side of their heads. So they've got really good range of vision.
Right.
And then they've got various breathing slits all up their faces. Quite often peaceful, but many of them carry the crescent nyumbu, which is like a traditional staff, and they practice the art of nodox, which is a specific martial art that focuses on avoidance and defense. Then you've got, and this makes for a perfect mercenary, the Grackletooth. Grackletooth's a badass.
He's very orky.
Yeah. They are a race of actually quite easygoing DBs, but they're big and they're beefy. They've got very, very tough lizard-like skin. They've got these massive, powerful sort of digigrade legs, and then this big lizard mouth. And a lot of them often end up being sort of mechanics, but you do also get a huge number of Crackletooth warriors. The Linsthrial are four-armed, flying, sort of lizard bird-like creatures.
They look like Aarakocra, whatever they are from
From
D&D, don't
D&D.
they? Yeah.
And
Don't
they
do that
do,
with a mouthful of cracker.
and they're known as the Golden Ones or the Sky Knights because they have a very high code of honor and they tend to drop from the sky to help people in their time of need. They often have strong magical abilities, so they quite often become Cloud Weavers, which is their culture's ancient order of revered mystics. So you've got 4 arms, which makes you pretty good at doing some pretty clever things, and good magic powers.
Hindi, Shiva, that sort of thing.
Yeah, very Shiva-esque.
These bastards.
Oh, hello.
The Psy Stalkers, used extensively by the Coalition. They're tribal mutants that inhabit a lot of the wilds of North America. And they're basically cannibalistic, but they don't feed on flesh. They feed on psychic power. So they stalk and hunt magical and psionic beings, and they gain their sustenance. They hunt them both for the thrill of the hunt and also for gaining their sustenance by draining their essence.
Their brain juice.
Yep, they need very little food and water. They're used by the Coalition because they're not magic users. They have psionic powers and they are psionic attuned, which means they make excellent hunters for magic and psychic users. And then the Psy Stalkers are allowed to just feed on them once they've been killed, and it helps the Coalition hunt them down. The average person tends not to have anywhere near enough potential psychic energy for them to feed on satisfactorily.
But if you were playing a Mind Melter or a Burster, you'd be quite juicy.
Exactly.
Right.
So they either hunt the supernatural, so the Zitasics or demons, or player characters with an arcane background who have a much bigger bigger pool of power points to draw from. Most Psy Stalkers will tend to kill the source. Some of them will try and drain them a little bit and keep them alive, and
like a traditional vampire would.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But most of them will just kill the host and then eat the soul as it leaves the body. And there are rules for that. If for some reason you wanted to cast a ritual magic and you wanted to overpower it, you could sacrifice a sentient being to do so, but it would end up leading to negative consequences from a morality point of view.
Well, I think I have an idea similar to what we talked about, I think, a week or two ago.
Yeah.
I'm either going to play a booster, burster,
Yeah.
or I'm going to play a Mind Melter. I just need to say, as they say, drill down.
Yeah.
On which both.
Well,
do.
let's have a quick look at those abilities, because at the moment there's only the 3 of us, isn't there? We've lost everyone else.
We've lost Mick. We've had KIAs.
So that leaves us free to talk a little bit about what we talked about before. So we can always just cut this bit off the recording if we need to. But
So our boobs were that big.
Yeah.
And I said, never with a milk bottle. Oh, he's back. Shh.
Sorry about that.
Don't
Don't know what happened. All seemed to die on me. Apologies.
Oh shit.
That tends to happen to all my audiences when I've been talking for long enough. Let's have a little drill down then, Gaz. Let's talk about. So Gaz was saying that there's 2 classes or 2 iconic frameworks he quite fancies, either the Burster or the Mind Melter. So both of the psychic ones.
Yeah.
I've got the book in front of me. What I'll do, I think I put this in the chat group, but I'll ping all these books over to people so you can have a read of them afterwards.
So you fancy being like do you want to be like a zombie cowboy or something like that?
No, I fancy being a pyrokinetic, but I want more. I want to see if there's more to it than just being a walking box of Swan Vesta.
Well,
I'd like to have a bit of nuance.
here we go. So, as
Or
a
is it low?
burster, you will gain the following.
Okay.
You get a couple of rolls on the hero's journey. So what those are, that's a bit of a fleshing out of your character to make it unique. And there's a whole load of tables. It could be training, it could be education, it could be psionics, it could be magic, it could be armor and weapons. Maybe you've got like a suit of armor that's been handed down through generations and it's got better protection or whatever. You'd roll on those and you'd get a little bit of cool fleshing out. Bursters can do any table apart from cybernetics, because cybernetics tend to interfere with psionic ability. Your main abilities are walking with fire. So you have a personal, emotional, and almost poetic relationship with fire, and it extends beyond the physical facts of your powers. The scholars speculate that you have a relationship with fire that sometimes manifests as you anthropomorphizing it and speaking to flames as like a mechanism of focus.
Yeah, it'd be like almost like I have a like elemental fire relationship.
Yeah,
There's a personality there or something.
Exactly. You can click your fingers and have a pillar of flame in your hands at any time you like, and you could just be chatting away to it. So in addition to flinging bolts of fire and manipulating combustible processes, some bursters are able to read and understand everything there is to know about a particular fire, even when it's no longer active. So you could study the site of a fire, sift through the ashes, find the burn patterns, and you could know exactly what happened, how it started, how it burned, what stopped it. You are completely impervious to heat and fire in any form. So you can never be set on fire. Lightning and electricity have a limited effect on you, since the heat and the burning components of them are of little concern.
Yeah.
You have a strong array of other psychic powers. So a lot of them relate to the manipulation of psionic energy in kind of a physical way.
Good.
And
I
they're
want to be
quite
like a little bit telekinetic, so I can like
Yeah.
open doors at distance or slap someone.
That's it. You're essentially a very powerful telekinetic who's fetishized fire and become a pyrokinetic.
Perfect.
So you get your arcane background in psionics, but you get a ton of power points. You start with 20 instead of the normal 10.
Ooh.
And you start with a high psionic skill.
Cool.
Any fire started by the burster are some of the most intense possible and can burn almost any material in existence. So when you attack someone with a fire attack and you get a raise, the target will catch fire regardless of what they are, and they will take 3d6 fire damage every turn until doused. So you can set like robots on fire and stuff, and their steel armor will just melt and burn.
Oh my goodness.
You get a fiery aura. So as an action, no roll or power required. You can just turn it on. You can surround yourself with a field of flame and heat, causing 3d6 damage to anybody who's adjacent to you at the end of your round, and giving you 6 armor because bullets and stuff fired into them will melt, and lasers will diffuse in the kind of smoke and the heat. Also, that adds 1d6 to any fighting attacks you make, because you'll just be setting fire to people as well as hitting them.
Yeah.
And you can spend some power points when you activate your fiery aura, so that for the next 5 rounds, it becomes mega damage fire. So you could just, you could hug a demon and just turn on your mega damage fire and melt them.
Immolate him.
Yeah, completely. You've got fire mastery, which means you have the innate ability to create, control, and eliminate minor fire, heat, and smoke. So you can just snuff stuff out, no cost, no power cost or anything. You can just snuff out a flame or start a fire or whatever. As an action, you can also activate the Elemental Fury or Exalted Manipulation modifiers for no extra power points. Don't know what those are, but essentially I think you can do more damage and more cool stuff for no extra power points.
Yeah, I think burst is definitely what I'm going for.
You've got immunity to all sources of fire, heat, and plasma damage, so plasma weapons literally can't hurt you. You could dive into a river of lava and come out unscathed.
What about being at ground zero on nuke? Or is that really energy?
The heat element of that you'd be fine against. The radiation element would still do you the damage, as would any concussive blast.
Yeah.
But you get complete immunity to heat and fire. You gain +4 to any roll against heat-based arcane attacks. So if someone casts a fiery spell at you, you take -4 damage from any lightning or electrical attacks, as well as laser, ion, and particle beam weapons.
Yeah, definitely a burster.
Yeah, I think so. I think you would make a good burster. The complications, so every character class has its upside and its downside. You can take cybernetics if you want to, but
Nope.
each piece of cybernetics imposes strain, and each piece of strain reduces your psychic skill by 1.
Nope, not interested in cybernetics. Just as I come in a package.
There you go. Okay. Sorry, guys.
No, it's cool. No cybernetics, Rob. I'm quite happy being a burster.
What is everyone else? What did you say? Mike and Dan have created characters.
Mike's created a character.
I've created a character. He's like a Mars, so one of these kind of the mercenaries, rogues and scholars. Sorry, dogs are getting fed here, so they're getting a bit bonkers. So I'm a kind of psychic operator.
Oh,
With I'm basically like a bit of a naive man-child who spends a lot of time playing like a little thing that's like a really piece of ancient technology that says Nintendo on the side.
Tamagotchi.
Yeah. And he's also writing his own game.
Oh, I don't know anyone like that.
I might not put that in. I'm only joking about that. He basically is like he's like a kind of gamer, but like he's got like a psychic powers and pretty naive as well. Pretty like a bit of a kind of man child. That's me.
Oh, okay.
It's called Young.
Yeah.
ding dong.
Yeah, he's like Korean. He's American, but like Korean background. Yeah.
The name Yongzhou rings a bell for some reason. I think it's related to something gaming, but it sounds geeky related. I'll need to go back.
It's gamer geek.
Youngis.
He's a geek. He's a gamer
Yeah.
geek. He's got some psychic powers.
So the burster, obviously, burster can't take cybernetics. As with any powerful psychic, both the Coalition and the True Federation of Magic consider bursters that are allied with enemy factions a dire threat to life and property. So you've got natural enemies already. Also, bursters tend to be a little bit demonized in any sort of population base, because people are constantly afraid of fire and damage to property. So you've got a quirk, pyromaniac. So though most are not sociopathic arsonists, bursters tend to have a thing about starting fires just to watch them burn with loving fascination. This is more aggravating than dangerous most of the time.
I have an idea, Robert. What's the score with religion in Rifts? Belief.
Well, pretty much as you choose. So we know that
I'm going to be a pyrokinetic nun.
Oh, you could have found some ancient texts from
Burn the heretic.
And whilst in the Golden Age, people may have looked down on
I can
such
get me saucy nun gear on.
and decide, oh my God, fire nun, this is amazing.
Tickle me in a wimple.
Fuck.
Yeah, I'm gonna play a pyrokinetic nun. That's the guys, and she's gonna
Give me. I'm gonna do you some character
Please,
art, guys. Give me
some character art. So yeah, like nun wreathed in fire is just, and given that you can manipulate fire on an almost molecular level, you can burst into flame and you can charge in and you can have your full arms wreathed in the stuff and be punching people. And, your habit will still be immaculate because you can maintain it psychically without any real effort at an appropriate distance to keep the heat away.
My sister Benedictine's
I-
fine, bruh.
Is she by any chance quite old and quite plump?
Well, she.
No,
she-
no, she's
No.
not.
No,
Oh,
She's literally hot. She's a big redheaded burlesque sort of like, oh, what's the thing out of that Toon cartoon?
Jessica Rabbit.
Yeah, Jessica Rabbit in a wimple.
Jessica Rabbit Fire Nun, Mike. That's what you want to put into
Yeah.
Midjourney.
Yeah, I think I just got a 40k picture that I might be able to use.
Oh.
Sister of Battle would be good.
I'll start sending you some pictures, guys, and you can tell me
Right,
which one you
right.
like.
I'm so
Oh.
excited by this character. So we've got ourselves a slightly pyromaniac, pyrokinetic psychic nun. We've got ourselves a wide-eyed psychic gamer nerd. Anything jumping out at you, Mick?
Name's going to be
Or
Bernadette.
anything you've got more questions about, more importantly?
Sister
the-
Bernadette.
the
Bernie
crazy
Bernadette.
definitely drew me towards the crazy. I quite like that. Sort of jumped out at me straight away.
Certainly the first.
I'll tell you something, Mick, and I think you and I probably come at this from a very similar point of view. The first NPC I made was a crazy, and it was a ton of fun to make. So let me just read you some of the crazy's abilities, so you've got a flavour for what they're like in a bit more detail and see if it fits. The first entry on the crazy page is cuckoo for competent. So crazies can lose it. So the crazy enjoys a certain level of preternatural capability. So crazies always have, right from the off, you've got enhanced agility, strength, and vigor. So you're extremely agile, extremely strong, and extremely you've got very high endurance, you've got very good defenses. All just because of this mind over matter implant. Your body is honed to perfection. It's running on adrenaline the entire time, and you've got these nano machines that are injected into your body through the MOM rig. But in addition to that, you can choose to lose it, which is sort of the barbarian berserker rage, and you completely unleash your potential. So you throw caution to the wind, shove rational thought to the back of your mind. And you gain the effects of being berserk. So what that does is it increases your strength and agility twice. So you become amazingly strong and agile. You become utterly fearless, immune to fear and intimidation. But you can't use your psychic powers whilst you're losing it. You don't have the focus. There are some talents that let you still use your psychic powers in the losing it stage. So that isn't a hard and fast rule. And then when you're ready, you can come out of your losing it state by getting it together, and that requires you to make a smarts roll to save from the sort of effect, and then you get -1 to all your rolls for a certain amount of time, depending on how successful you were, while you kind of get it together, and you're kind of stumbling around, either racked with guilt, crippling depression, irrational fear. It could be some kind of wild delusion, and those you can ham up and role play to your heart's content.
So mostly living on adrenaline and totally sort of on edge, occasionally going absolutely crazy, and then sort of trying to pull it back together again. This does actually just sound like day-to-day life.
You realize it's called role playing, Nick. However, I'll give you a couple of things you probably don't have in day-to-day life. You get bioregeneration.
Oh yeah.
So certain parts of the brain are awoken via the mind over matter implant, which means that you get to make a natural healing roll once every 24 hours, and you can recover permanent injuries. So what that means in game terms is the Rift system's really over the top. It's very pulpy, but it's very dangerous, unlike D&D. So when you've taken damage, you can only heal naturally once every 5 days, but you don't take like 60 hit points. You take 1 of 3 wounds, and the wound level gives you a penalty to all your actions. So every 5 days you can heal. As a crazy, you can heal every 24 hours. And if you lose an arm or a leg, you can grow it back, which makes you pretty badass.
Just a bit.
Permanent placebo.
Also, that's really useful because one of the effects on the critical table is you can have your nads blown off. So it's nice to be able to heal those kind of things back.
Yeah.
It just says no other side consequences, just an unpleasant rest of your life. I believe the table, the very bottom roll on the table, if you roll a 1, is hitting the unmentionables.
Wow.
You also get Nerves of Steel as an edge, which I think I'll look that up, but it basically makes you better. You only need half the normal amount of sleep, so you only ever need 4 hours of sleep. You gain +4 to any checks to resist fatigue or sleep deprivation. You move at double your normal speed, and you can jump horizontally and vertically twice as far as well, because you're super fast. You've got heightened senses, so you get +2 to perception or notice and tracking rolls. You ignore, this is a really good one, you ignore up to 2 points worth of range penalties. So you could be firing pistols at ridiculous ranges and just ignoring the penalties and still popping people because you've got these heightened senses. But in addition to that, you're a minus psionic. So you will get 10 power points and 3 psychic powers right off the bat, as well as a pretty high psychic skill. So
We're all psychic.
you'll be able to do a number of things. So the psychic powers you get, for example, are Arcane Protection, which protects you against magic and psychic attacks. Booster Trait, so you can make one of your own traits even better. So you could psychically make yourself even stronger, even faster, even smarter. You can confuse other people. You can give yourself dark sight. You could detect or conceal magic. Disguise, which you won't be able to do at first level, but it's a cool power later on. Empathy, environmental protection, farsight, healing, etc. So you've got some cool psychic powers you can give yourself.
Cool.
You begin as quick, which means you get initiative in the game is a card draw. You draw from a deck of cards. Highest card goes first. With the quick edge, I think you can draw two. You can either draw 2 cards and take the highest,
Excuse me.
or you can keep drawing until you get at least a 5, so that
Right.
you're always pretty good. And you've got superhuman reflexes, which means this is brilliant, actually. Uncanny reflexes.
What you playing? What you playing?
Well, we're talking about the crazy at the moment, potentially. So the crazy's reflexes are superhuman. It's -2 to be hit by any attack that you are aware of. So as long as you're aware that the attack is coming in, even if it's a ranged attack, it's -2 to hit you. And you get +2 on evasion rolls to dodge attacks.
Awesome.
Street Samurai.
The
like outside.
complications for crazies are if you can take cybernetics, but if you do, you will lose some of the effectiveness of your psionic skill. Less potent for a crazy because it doesn't reduce any of your physical benefits. You've also got quite a distinctive appearance. So the protrusions of the mind over matter implant from the skull mark a crazy. But most crazies also indulge in tattoos, body piercings, other means of declaring themselves to the world. So you tend to have quite an outlandish
Excuse me,
look.
lads.
In fact, Mike, if you let me share screen, I will throw up the image, the Mid-Journey image of the crazy that I made, which is pretty typical.
Should be with you now, mate.
let me
I've just got to let the dogs out.
No worries, buddy. So I made an NPC crazy, and she looks like this. Got too many windows open now. And that's pretty standard for a crazy. So they've got the mind over matter head implant, but they tend to have a lot of tattoos, a lot of piercings, potentially a shaved head, but a bit of a ponytail. They're pretty obvious to pick out of a crowd. You also have, as there's the negative side of being a crazy, you can never use magic. So you've got psychic powers, but the implants jumble your mind up too much to focus enough to cast magic spells. And crazies need constant action. So you live in a constant state of heightened adrenaline and awareness. And even a depressed crazy can't escape that wild adrenaline feeling. So during a slow period, I might call for a spirit roll. And if you fail, you might become irritable or impatient. And you'll essentially get -1 on all of your checks until the action kicks in or until you get back on high alert. But the key one is you've got an unstable psyche. So from the beginning of your character creation, there is a separate psyche degradation chart that you will roll on, and it'll give you, it's a D10, and you could become bloodthirsty or clueless or delusional. You could develop a habit or a mania. You could become a monologuer who describes everything they're doing. That would be a terrible mental illness, honest. You could become overconfident. You could develop a phobia. You could become ruthless or suspicious. And you kind of have to role play that the whole way through. And I think each time you level up, or each time you gain a new like special power, you get more of those psychic degradations as you get crazier and crazier.
Okay.
So that's the crazy.
I like it.
Any others jump out at you as interesting?
What were the last few again? Because
So the iconic frameworks, they're in your journal, but the last few
okay.
were there were the couple of magic ones, which were the Leyline Walker and the Mystic, and then there were the other psychic, which is the Mind Melter, which is like the mega powerful psychic, or the Techno Wizard.
Yeah, they didn't take me quite.
No. Or you've got the other side of the superhuman coin, which is the Juicer, which is the biocomputer enhanced superhuman. A lot of similarities to the crazy in terms of the source of their powers, but they don't have the mental instability. Let me just have a look actually what makes juicers different.
Oh, the Juicer was the one, but they've got a 4 or 5 year lifespan, and I'm thinking I quite like the idea of us playing for longer than that.
I'll tell you how it works, right? Bear in mind that when we played Pathfinder, we played for 3.5 months, and we managed to do 11 in-game days of time. So I think you could probably be okay. So juicers,
You never know, though. You never know.
The big deal for the juicers, right, is the burn. So they go under the knife and they get a biocomp and implants which convert them into the world's most potent super soldiers. They're often quite nihilistic, so they do a lot of live fast, die young, leave a good looking corpse. As it says in here, most of them probably meant it at the time, but as their short lives come to pass in a hail of blood and bullets, they start to feel themselves kind of burn away faster and faster. So you get chemical enhancement and nanotech augmentation. There's an unreliable timer ticking away in a juicer's system, and when it goes off, the chemicals and hormone overdrive nanosystems that make him into a demigod will literally burst his heart. That's the burn. Like the stress on your heart will just inevitably just pop you, or send your brain into fatal stroke, or whatever it might be. The organs can only take so much. But until that happens, juicers can do more impossible things before breakfast than others can accomplish in a lifetime. So juicers have a special rating called the burn rating, and it measures how short your lifespan is and your capacity for superhuman feats. So in a normal campaign, your burn rating starts at 8, and it decreases over time. There's no way to replenish it. You just, your organs sort of get used up. At the same time, you can call on the burn rating and spend burn points to perform insane things. So the way it works is at any time you can attempt to add a single burn die to the result of every single ability check, strength roll, vigor check, and it's a D6, and you add it to whatever you roll. So it basically means that you can pretty much guarantee succeeding on everything, because in order to pass in Savage Worlds, you need to get a 4+. And the way that it works is all your skills and all your traits all your traits, so your strength, agility, vigor, they all start at a D4, and you have to get a 4+ to pass. Every time you level up one of your traits, it goes up by a die size. So it goes up from a D4 to a D6, D6 to a D8, and so on. So in the end, if you're a combat cyborg, you might have a strength of D12 or D12 plus 1, which means that you're rolling a D12, adding 1, and trying to get 4 or more to succeed, which not only means that it's much more likely, but also you're more likely to get degrees of success on top of that. So you can burn a die to get an extra d6 that's added on to whatever else you've rolled. The roll of the burn die is a separate roll, blah, blah, blah. Suspending a burn die means making a huge difference in combat, but also hastening the process of burning out. So the lower your burn rating, the closer you are to death, and the more dangerous it becomes. So when you reach a burn rating of 3, oh, this is cool. So when your burn rating goes down to 3, you start adding a d8 instead of a d6. At a burn rating of 2, it becomes a d10. And when you've only got 1 burn rating left, you're adding d12s.
Wow.
I assume that you have to spend these. Yes, yeah. So you'll start with 8. At any point in a campaign, you can spend those 8. Now, a Rifts campaign is likely to be relatively lethal. Now, you're not going to die in 8 sessions, but you're also probably only going to use a burn die once every few times. So that's one aspect of it. In addition, juicers have got an internal repair system, which gives you, same as the crazy, a natural healing roll once per day. But the difference with a juicer is because you've got these chemical concoctions and nanites in your body, you can call on them for emergency repairs. So you can take an action and make a natural healing roll at +2 to heal your wounds, and it costs 1 charge. The system has 3 charges, and it recovers 1 charge every 8 hours. So basically every few days, you can sort of force yourself to heal stuff. Is he wrapped up, Rob? Right. I'll keep an eye on him. I'll wrap him up. Yeah, will do. Thank you. Right, I'll just sort the dog out.
Oh, that's fine.
I love that idea though, Gaz, for the pyrokinetic nun.
Yeah.
Sister Swan.
Sister Swan.
And do you know what her first name is?
What?
Vesta. Vesta Swan. Sisterhood of the Immaculate Flame.
Brilliant. Swan Vesta.
The Little Church of Embers. Can't wait. Can't wait.
Brilliant.
I don't need one of those.
It just came to me. It was like, oh,
I did some
pyrokinetic nuns.
Mickey, I just did some images. Let me just see if I can show you these. And they're just great.
Oh my God.
I've sent you one, Rob.
Oh, I need to look.
One of them looked like she was having a bit of a good time. She looked somewhat ecstatic.
I don't think anyone who's religious has a good time. They always feel guilty for something. Whereas I am irreligious, and I have no guilt from anything. Well.
Oh.
Well.
I am also going to have a little mid-journey play as well after this. I'll bombard Gaz with some options. Sister Swan. I'm liking the.
Did you say what her first name was, Gaz?
Yeah. Go
on.
Vesta. First name's Vesta. Sister Swan. Call me Vesta. Oh, it's cracking.
Oh my God, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Come on, baby, light my fire.
So what were you going for then, Mickey? Did you go for the crazy in the end? Crazy.
I think I like the crazy. I'm not sure. I mean, the juicer sounds interesting, but I kind of like the idea of the crazy because that could go on for ages and could turn into quite an interesting character. This sort of.
I really, really like the crazy. I like the fact that, and we'll come to this when we do characters. So what we'll do, I'll grab you at some point, Mick. It takes about an hour to put a character together.
It took a bit longer than we were thinking, didn't it, Rob?
It did, but you and I talked an awful lot, Mike. We
chit-chat about a lot.
We did about 45 minutes of talking shit and 45 minutes of making a character. And yours was also the first one I made, and the Foundry module.
There's a bit of a learning curve on that.
Yeah, the Foundry module's really good, but you have to know where things are because some of them are under Savage worlds, and some of them are under rifts, and I've kind of learned that a bit now.
Cool.
I think a crazy would be excellent. So all we really need is, well, I hate to say a gender and a name. You can, you choose not to have a gender or to be gender fluid. Maybe it depends on your particular flavor of the week.
No, she's a redhead. She's
Crazy
got
mum.
boobs. She's fit. She's a woman. Dead easy. None of these 57 genders.
To be fair, what we're doing at the moment, other than Asian Gamer Kid, we're going to have hot nuns
Oh, wow.
and mad
Guns with
people.
guns.
This is the
Guns with guns.
closest to my teenage experience of playing role-play games. It's literally hot women and mental illness. This is how I
Better not-
discovered RPGs.
Right, lads. What stays in the gaming thing?
Stays in the game.
Safe space.
Yeah,
safe
yeah,
space.
yeah. Because if my wife finds out I'm hobnobbing with redheads, there'll be no fucking living with it.
Oh, I think that's absolutely perfect. So what I'll do, I'll send out the rule books, so that you can have a bit of a read for yourself and kind of make sure that those are the things that you're happy with. But I think the idea of a crazy, I mean, it's a joke, isn't it? A crazy, a burster, and a psychic Asian walk into a bar. Asian is a character class, by the way. It's an iconic framework.
But if the crazy and young are quite young, and Sister Swan's like sort of like late 20s, early 30s, I could have a little menagerie. Sister Swan's school for unruly children, or for wayward souls.
Genius. I said to Mike said, I quite like the idea that he's he's this kind of Asian gamer kid, but he's quite wide-eyed. And I made a terribly inappropriate joke about, well, he won't be wide-eyed, will he? But Mike managed to get the artwork absolutely right.
Got it right.
Brilliant.
Really good, Rob. Really good.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I've read the description on the crazy, and it's I like the fact that it's got like a really old piece of tech in his head.
Yeah, it's pre-rifts.
Quite clever.
People have rediscovered the tech, but nobody really knows how or why it works. And I like the fact that originally the whole point of the tech was it was developed to help cure mental illness. And then the military got it and just went, well, if we just took all the safeties off and turned it right up, it would make super soldiers. But the byproduct is increased mental illness.
Yeah. Sounds worth it. Totally worth it.
Brilliant.
Very, very,
well,
very good.
I'm going to do a bit of Mid-Journey idea art for Sister Swan as well. And we'll stick them all at Gaz and see what he likes.
I don't have Mid-Journey anymore these days. So if
I can do some crazy art for you if you need.
Please, that would be appreciated.
Yeah,
All contributions are appreciated. However, I do think I have a photo that I may be able to use.
In which case, I will be
You've
delighted.
got something better.
No, I don't know if I've got it, but I'm definitely going to use that one, Mike, if I don't find the one that I did thought of originally when I thought of the idea of the character.
Yeah.
Are you thinking male or female, Mick?
Male.
Yeah, I'll do a sort of crazy looking dude.
I'm not sure how old. I don't think old, but probably somewhere maybe in sort of the late 20s into the 30s, somewhere around there.
I'd have thought if you've had the implant much longer than that, you're going to be probably nuts.
Unlikely to make is again as kind of comes with almost a built-in self-destruct mechanism just because
the berserk edge, which is the ability that you can use to go berserk. Basically what it gives you is the berserker edge. Here we go. And the way that works in the main rules, yes, your strength and your vigor will increase by 2 die types. You'll get more powerful. You get enraged, so you get +2 to your toughness. Yeah. You can ignore 1 level of wound penalties as well. You just don't feel it. But you also get reckless abandon. So every time you roll a critical failure on a fighting check, you hit a random target within range, which could be friend or foe. So you just go nuts. I mean, critical failures are quite rare in Savage Worlds.
But if we just make sure Mick goes first in combat, and just like one of those battling will top thing, like a Beyblade, Pull the cord and watch him go.
Yeah.
Slip
Just
it out
stay
there.
way back.
Tasmanian Devil.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
it. Zoom. Taz. Taz is a good name.
Taz, that is a good name.
yeah.
Taz is his name.
Taz is a
Taz
good
and
name,
Sister
yeah.
Swan.
Yeah.
Taz Young and Sister Swan. Right. The plan is, what I'll try and do, I'll try and grab the pair of you at some point over the next week. And just
Whenever you're ready, Rob,
Yeah.
because I've got no itinerary at the moment, so you're fine, mate.
Perfect. Well, if we chuck characters together that way, even if it's just the three of us, it'll work out relatively nicely, and we'll jump into session 0 Wednesday.
You know, I was thinking this
Mm.
was the original posse, wasn't it?
Well,
It was actually.
This is
This is
what
what we started
RPG Night
with.
was for like 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we got another,
Yeah.
and then we got to be greedy. Like we got to be greedy, but like
I
now
got
this is
7,
the
8.
essential. This was the four of us, wasn't it? This is like
The
This-
4
perfect.
elements.
Oh God, hang on. I need to check on this dog again.
Oh,
yeah. So even if we did a campaign with just the sort of four of us, you know, if we played Rift with just the four of us, I think that'd be actually really nice. Actually,
well,
I think-
yeah. Plus,
think
like
I-
Rob said, for folk that can't make it, you can do optional. You can do
Yeah.
little like a 2-player mission, or 1-player or a 3-player. Do you know what I mean? Depending on who's there.
I think Phil's got a bit on his plate at the moment, and Dan is going to be out for a wee while. So
Yeah, I
and
can
Andy's job seems to be kind of like quite demanding, keeps
Busy.
pulling him off. So pulling him off, but not in a good way.
But when he's not doing that, he's doing his game, isn't he? So he's
bit
He's
sort of-
tied up. He's
amazing
tied up with a lot of
time
stuff.
to think about anything really. But yeah,
Yeah. Good, Mickey. You look like a mafia don there. The way you're sort of sat there on the beach.
I'm kind of sat I'm in the living room, so I'm sat on like an armchair, just sat on the armchair. I thought I'd sit somewhere comfy tonight, as soon as we were
Quite
doing
right.
talking stuff.
And you've got heat and power and electricity, and your house is nice
know.
and prepared and warm and comfy. Why
Having
not?
heat and electricity is such a treat,
Isn't it, mate?
Yeah. So
Feeling it even more now, Gaz. You're starting to really value it.
Tell you. Quest for fire, not a bloody boiler.
How long
You need a
How
flaming
long were you
gun, dude.
without? How long were you without gas central heating?
2.5 weeks.
Oof,
That's ridiculous, man. That's so bad.
I bet the house got really cold, didn't it?
Well, yes.
Did it
And I
freeze on
live on the
inside?
top of a hill,
Mm.
and we had the wind howling around the house.
Oh,
It was actually at one point warmer to go outside than it was inside.
I had a friend of mine in Ireland who lost power for 3 days with the storm, and he was saying they've got she's not quite a newborn, I think she's about 7 or 8 months now, but they've sent her off to the childminder who still had power, and the two of them were in the house, and he said at best the house was 8 degrees. Most of the time it was colder, and he was just like, you could see your breath. And the only upside was because the power was out, if they left the fridge door open, the food was staying pretty fresh. But other than that,
At the worst, I had the oven on in the kitchen to generate heat. Yeah. But no, it's I am now living in the 21st century again with heat, lighting, and power. Well, I did have power anyway, but just heating and hot water. Because there's only so far you can go with a kettle when you're trying to wash the pots.
this is true.
Our boiler broke a few years ago. Shall I stop the recording?
Yeah, probably. It's less